Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to your post-match Raw on AI Pro and live on Discord for those of you who are joining us now. Hello to you, podcasting to you from my field here in nighttime, beautiful rural Ireland. I'm Trev Downey, and joining me to give their reactions to Liverpool 2, Villareal 0 in the Champions League first leg of the semi-final are Dave Hendrick, and in a late change to the lineup, Hari Sethi. Dave, you've got to just take your hat off to what this manager has done to this club, because the one thing I was looking forward to and asking for and begging for was something of a humdrum, routine, run-of-the-mill, zero drama. That was the thing I wanted most. Zero drama affair tonight after that fucking lunacy that occurred last night. I just wanted zero drama and a high likelihood of progressing. And Jurgen served it up to us on a plate via those wonderful footballers of his.
Yeah, he did. And, you know, he was aided and abetted by the fact that Villareal didn't come to try and win the game. They just basically bedded in and said, right, come and beat us. And if you can beat us, fair play. We won't try and beat you back. We obviously dominated the ball. Thiago once again ran the show, playing a different game to most of the people on the pitch. 74% of the possession for the Reds. 19 shots to their 1, 5 shots on target to their 0. If our final ball had been a little bit better earlier on, if we'd been a little bit more awake early on, we could have been 2 up within the first 15 minutes, and that might have been the tie dead and buried. But the thing with them, like if you play a normal team in a game and you score a goal, they have to open up, but they didn't, because that's not their way. And with a second leg, they could afford to remain cautious. Even at 2-0, they were still playing the same way they had at 0-0. So look, they won't be too distraught about 2-0. They'll believe that they can beat us back on their home pitch, but they are going to have to open up at home. With a 2-goal deficit, they are going to have to open up, because they can't just sit back and hope to spring a counter and get 1 goal to equalise. Now they have to get 2. And if they open up against us, we'll carve them apart, because individually they're not good enough to live with us. They work because they're very well drilled, very well organised. But tonight they were just outplayed by a vastly superior team.
Sorry, go on. Sorry, finish the point.
I was going to say, I saw Henry Jackson sum up the game fairly perfectly by saying, being a Liverpool fan in 2022 with this team means your team winning 2-0 at home in a Champions League semi-final, and you're just slightly disappointed it's not 3.
Yeah, do you know what? That was the other thing I was going to tack on at the end, and it just shows you how entitled we've all become. Fair play to us. I was going to just stick a little foot across you there, Ibu Konate style, and ask a quick question before I got to Harry for his opening thoughts. Because you'll have seen a bit more of these boys than I will. I was letting everybody know who would listen to me that this is going to be a big challenge, primarily because of the manager and his outrageous record in Europe. And I was concerned on multiple levels about this, and I really, I'm asking you a simple question here. It was your point there was, you know, even at 2-0, they'll reckon they can win at their place. I reckon they can win at their place, but they're not going to stop us scoring, are they? I mean, as well. And are they going to win by a 2-goal margin? It seemed a weird. There was a little bit more intent Jesus, and I struggled to call it that with the substitutions for a period of the second half. But they really didn't lay a glove on us. I mean, the stats are really damning. No shots on target, 1 in total to our 20 and 5 on target and our 2 goals. And as you say, could have been more. It was a strange game plan, Dave, especially once they went a goal down. I have to say, I was quite disappointed in Emery and in this side. And, you know, in that keeper as well, let's be honest. That lad obviously forgot how to catch a football. I'm sorry, but that's liability stuff, what he was doing tonight. And we will have learned from that. There'll be pot shots coming in from all over the kip in the second leg.
There will, for sure. I mean, look, there's a couple of things to factor in here. Their home record isn't really good enough for them to go with this sort of game plan. In the league this year, they've played 17 home games. They've only won 10 of them. So they've drawn 5 and lost 2. They've only won 10 of their 17 home games. And if you look at their Champions League record, they lost at home to Manchester United. They drew at home with Villareal. They drew at home with Juventus. Their only home wins were Young Boys, who, let's be fair, are one of the weaker teams in the Champions League. And they beat Bayern at home 1-0. Now, Bayern aren't nearly as good as we are defensively. And they only managed 1 goal on them. It was a game in which Bayern had 20-odd shots. Bayern dominated most of the game. And while people came out away from it afterwards saying, oh, Emery masterclass, not really. Not really. When you give up 20 shots in a game, it's not a masterclass. If you keep a clean sheet in that, you've had a lot of luck along the way, or your keeper's had a worldie. We're a better team than Bayern. We're better defensively. We're more ruthless in attack. And I don't think it's a good game plan. But I watched the game on CBS, and Carragher after the game, I thought, summed up Emery perfectly. He said he's a good manager. There's no doubt he's a good manager. You look at him and look at his record. And to be fair, he has won 4 Europa Leagues, and he's a runner-up in the Europa League with Arsenal. He also won the League One title with PSG. But I mean, that's a gimme. You know, me or you could go and win the League One title with PSG. But the reason he can't manage a top club is because he can only really set his team up to play that way. And if it doesn't go well for him, it just doesn't go well. There's no real plan B with them. They can open up a little bit. They can be a bit more expansive. There's no doubting they've got a lot of talented footballers. The likes of Lo Celso, Danjuma, Chukwueze, Gerard Moreno, who didn't play tonight, Yeremy Pino. There's talent there. It's just that he doesn't really make the most of it. He wants, and maybe it's something that the club are quite happy with because they are a smaller club and because they are always punching above their weight. I mean, if we factor in Villareal, the city is about the size of Hereford. So imagine Hereford FC or St Johnstone in Scotland from Perth, which is about the same size Villareal. Imagine one of them getting to a Champions League final. Or Champions League semi-final.
I'm going to stop you there because I see Adam Petriccione is floating the same stat, and I had to listen to Fletch going on about it as well. He compared it to Morecambe, Dave, just for. That's it. So it's interesting, but we do know that's not how these things work. You know,
no, of course not. Look, he's taken. Emery works best as an underdog. One of the reasons he didn't work out at PSG and didn't work out at Arsenal is because they're big clubs who want to do more than just, you know, scrape their way through or win the Europa League in a big surprise. And they don't want to play a negative style of football. That's why he can't manage a top club. Why he's at a club like Villareal. And the funniest thing about it is, back in November, December, when he almost took the Newcastle job, they were happy for him to go. They weren't clinging on to him with, you know, for dear life. They were happy enough for him to go. So he's an odd manager. He's clearly a good manager. He's very good at what he does, which is set a team up, be very disciplined, very compact, follow directions to the letter of the law. His players rarely make individual mistakes, although the keeper is a very un-Emery type of player. I think he'll probably get replaced in the summer if Emery stays. But I mean, they came to do what they came to do, and it worked for them for 53 minutes. And the fact of it is, it took a freak deflection on a cross that wasn't going anywhere for us to break them down. if that cross doesn't take a deflection off a Stupinan, maybe that game ends 0-0. And maybe we're all sitting here thinking, God, that was frustrating. We really should have beat them. They're not up to much. But that's what it took for us to break them down. And Emery will, whether he believes it or not, that's what the message he will pervade to his team. It was working. It took a freak deflection. That cross wasn't going anywhere. We would have gotten the draw we went for, or maybe we would have lost 1-0, but we'd be in a better situation. We're only 2 down because of a freak deflection.
Well, he's going to have to lean into all those kind of things, Harry. And just let's get one thing clear here before you and I start chatting about your initial impressions of the match. Dave has laid down the gauntlet. Both he and I would easily march to the Ligue 1 title with PSG. Would you?
Happily, yeah.
There you go. You're backing yourself.
The trophy cabinet, yeah. Have a little flirtation with the domestic cup as well, but then sort of bin it off as well. It'd be good. It'd be good actually. Maybe I'd even put on the Joey Barton French accent as well, just to really sort of.
Oh, magic, yeah. Yeah, Steve McLaren it up there a bit, and yeah, why not? Let's get some initial thoughts from you. I mean, it's interesting there to listen to Dave's assessment of Emery and Villareal, and long and short of what he's saying there is that they had a plan, they stuck to the plan. They'll still have some hope, and it was interesting. Even I'm not sure who it was. We had a remarkable panel of Steve McManaman and Michael Owen and Rio Ferdinand. You'll love this one, Harry. Just before I came to the mic, Michael Owen is listening to Rio Ferdinand, and Rio's talking about how Liverpool are ticking all the boxes, and he looks like he wants to eat himself from the inside out. It's clearly hurting him dearly. Michael Owen leans in conspiratorially and says to him something along the lines of, "It doesn't bear thinking about, does it?" This is what Michael Owen says. And then he had to rally and sort of recover and go, "I didn't mean it like that. I meant it like," and he's gone on one. And it was just, you could see Peter Crouch gave it away completely because he was wincing in pain. Oh no, Michael Owen's given away that he's a secret mank. It was a remarkable moment. The point of what I'm trying to say here is just, apart from giving a bit of colour to those who are listening, is, there was a lot of talk about how Villareal are still breathing. One of them said they still have a pulse, and I thought it wasn't a bad expression to get across the basic idea that the tie is not as dead as we'd like it to be, Harry.
Yeah, no, I think you could say that when you're looking at the scoreline, and I certainly sort of agree with what Dave's saying, is that if you're the Villareal coach, you're coming out of that and saying, look, it took that freak deflection in order to crack us open. We were doing well. We lost ourselves there a little bit in the chaos over those couple of minutes, but aside from that, we largely restricted Liverpool to not too many clear-cut chances. If you're from the Liverpool side of things, where you think, well, we just ratcheted up, you ratchet up the pressure, you're slowly boiling the water, or sort of the whole sort of frog in the boiling pot analogy there around sort of the pressure told in the end. And I would be more on that side, to be honest, Trev, in terms of just I was quite happy with the performance, even in the first half when they were trying to make out like there was a huge amount of frustration amongst the Liverpool team and the audience. The crowd there sort of creeping in at half time. I didn't really buy that, to be honest, too much. I thought we'd created enough half chances to sort of suggest that we might be able to get in a little bit more. It was another game where I was watching, I was thinking, if this is the razor sharp version of Mo Salah, a couple of those half chances are going, flying into the top corner. That's just how he's been in the Champions League for us. But I do agree around Emery. I was reading something about him before the game, and sort of the reason why maybe he's not been able to really excel at bigger clubs is that he tends to just adapt those tactics over and over and over again, more so focused around just nullifying the opponent, right? And so that actually there's never usually a really coherent style of play when he's played for Arsenal, for example, when he managed Arsenal rather, or when he managed PSG. That was one of the things that were sort of labelled at him. But no, I mean, we had good practice with Everton, despite them being nowhere near as talented a side, I'd say, as Villareal. And we may have another sort of test sort of session on the weekend, because I'm assured that this new look Newcastle side are going to try and do this to us as well.
Yes, there's a lot of talk about that, and I look forward to listening to your show in advance, so I can find out what's happening with all things Newcastle. And just one last thing to yourself before you and I go on and have a look at the Liverpool team together, which we'll do presently. Whatever, I'm getting the distinct impression from you that there's a level of contentment around what Liverpool did in that first leg. And I want to just revisit something there, like Dave mentioned early on, and there's going to be a lot of chat. Probably a lot of us will openly admit that we'd much prefer if it was 3-0, etc., etc. But we do have to kind of take a hold of ourselves, don't we, Harry, and say, I noticed, for example, a tweet from Sean Cummins this morning. I think it was Sean, and he was saying along the lines of, it's a Champions League semi-final morning, and I'm incredibly calm, and I don't know what to do with that. Basically, I'm not sure. I thought it was Sean, but basically that was the gist. And we do have to kind of pinch ourselves here. Like, I know we're always going to be on this show, always going to be about, in the immediate aftermath, nitpicking. That's the job of this show. That's the whole raison d'etre of this show. So if it appears occasionally negative to you, well, what can I tell you? That's what we're here to do, is to look at. But Christ, man, we have to give ourselves. We have to say, you know, our level of expectation has grown to such an extent that I felt like exactly like that tweet as well. I was going into the day going, I'm so calm about this, not in an arrogant way, but just like these lads can beat any fucker. That's how I feel, Harry.
Yeah, no, we've spoken before, right, about sort of how, we've spoken about sort of Liverpool sides being sort of a Swiss Army knife of a side, and there's numerous ways in which we can beat you. But also, I think this current incarnation of Liverpool as well is probably one of the smartest sides that we've ever had as well, in terms of just figuring games out. Occasionally, you can see sort of weird patches where you go, maybe they've taken their foot off the gas so much that they've actually forgotten that they do have to play and they have to engage in the game a little bit, but then they can quickly sort of rediscover sort of the pattern of a game. And I think it's summed up by sort of the player that I'm sure we'll talk about a lot, and the one who's getting all the plaudits after the game as well, in Thiago, right? When you got somebody who is that technically talented, but then also that intelligent when it comes to just football intelligence on the pitch, control, composure. And then you're partnering him with Fab, who I thought was really, really excellent tonight, and sort of controlling when he needed to be tenacious, when he needed to get a foot in, be aggressive. Some really, really big tackles as well, just to sort of impose himself on the game. When you got footballers like that who are so clever in the middle of the park for you, and then you got Virgil behind them, you got this young Kanate who looks like he's got everything in his game, and you got Alisson, who at one stage the commentator has to ask whether or not he's freezing. I think you understand that there's a level of control that we're taking into games now, Trev.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Let's you and I take a look at this Liverpool team. The Liverpool lineup, Harry. I'm going to say something that's hardly controversial, but I think it's the team that Jurgen goes with in inverted commas, the big games. We might all have different opinions about that. We'll have maybe one specifically different opinion about it, but that I think is his go-to in massive games. I'm not saying it's mine, I'm not saying it's ours, I'm not saying it's anybody else's, but I think it's Jurgen's. And this massive game rolls around this evening, and he goes with the captain in midfield alongside Thiago and Fab, and that's disappointing for those who want to see Keita, but also it's hard to do too much arguing around that, because at this stage we are inured to the fact that he's going to want to get Henderson on the pitch whenever he can, and it's hardly a weak midfield, especially when we have Thiago and Fab in the form that they are, and when you have a team that's playing as defensively as Villareal are, and that three across the front is probably our best and most in form and most dangerous three, and is highly exciting with Sadio through the middle. The change of note really is the bringing in of Ibu Konate, and now it seems, doesn't it, that he is also one who comes in for particularly important games. And it's interesting to work out what's going on in Jurgen's head. Does it simply come down to a horses for courses thing, or has he got specific things in mind? What did you make around the selection of Konate, and was there anything else that had you raising your eyebrow? I kind of doubt it.
No, not particularly. I mean, sort of weirdly, actually, there was one point today where I was wondering whether or not that he'd rotate both Keita and Thiago out the team. I think that Thiago is so important to us that it's and he's had obviously some injury issues since he's joined us, that it's often just weird to see him playing right now as often as he is. I mean, obviously we're in for a treat whenever he does play, because he's been absolutely exceptional recently as well. But you almost want to wrap him up in cotton wool for the big games. But then again, these are the big games. It's a Champions League semi-final against a team that you know is going to sit deep and ask you to break them down. So he's the player you want there. But the other changes, Henderson coming back in, I wasn't too surprised given that he sort of his involvement in the previous games, and Keita being sort of present in the side. Maybe sort of there was a feeling that he'd bring that level of intensity, and again when he's paired with Fab and Thiago, that can sometimes be a useful pairing, especially in games where we know we're gonna dominate all of the ball. Basically, he can be quite effective in those games from time to time. Konate, I don't know, Trev. I still think if in the biggest of games, I imagine Jurgen would turn back to Joel Matip, it wouldn't surprise me, for example, if we're in the Champions League final, that he would look to somebody like Matip and play him. But Konate, I mean, every single time he's been called upon has been excellent. That one error against Benfica aside, he's barely put a foot wrong. Every single game that he plays, you can see more and more of his all-round sort of game. Didn't get a goal from a set piece today, but sort of the defensive aspects of his game were just completely excellent, so dominant, and you can see why he's such a great partner for Van Dijk. So I don't know. I think it's just this really clever man management. Bringing these players in, making everybody feel involved. Picking a game like this where we're going to largely dominate the ball. They're quite a big team as well. Either Matip or Konate could have probably done that job, but it's similar to you feeling calm ahead of the game, Trev. It's great to look at that young centre back and just go, yeah, that's fine. Just drop him into a Champions League semi-final. I'm sure he'll be okay.
And meanwhile, Joe Gomez is sitting there as well. It's an embarrassment of riches. I heard it's being linked with another defender of note today as well, which is interesting. Dave, let's you and I have a quick look at Villareal and talk through their strengths and weaknesses. Very interesting. Speaking of strengths and weaknesses, I saw the appropriately named Foyth trying to pick a Foyth with Trent there at the end of the game. He was very upset, so he was altogether. Trent's laughing at him. It's funny. And then Kloppo comes over and he just stands still and he's just sneering at him as well.
Apparently it all started over Diaz. I'm not sure. I'm looking at a video of it. I'm not really sure. It only shows sort of the end of it. Apparently it was Diaz sort of behind Trent and Klopp. They were kind of getting in the way of Diaz, and then Diaz was being led away by somebody else. So I don't know what it started over, but there's a picture going around of Trent with this really smug look, just looking at him, thinking like, "You're a Spurs reject, lad. What are you talking about?"
That's exactly it. And it's interesting you bring us there, because there's an awful lot. Even Owen Hargreaves was able to point out the fact that there's an awful lot of Premier League, not rejects, that wasn't the word he used, but people who didn't quite make the grade in this team. And it's an interesting mix when you've got the likes of Albiol in there as well. You mentioned Moreno, who's obviously a class act, who wasn't around this evening. I'm not sure if you know anything about whether he'll make the second leg or not. But they started with Rulli, who I have to say that's one of the most interesting, and by interesting I mean dodgy as fuck goalkeeping performances I've seen in ages. It was really, really notable how he had entirely reluctant to ever catch a ball. It's like any of us who grew up in this particular island are looking at him going, catch the ball, lad, what are you doing? It was very, very strange. Anyway, they go with Foyth, Albiol, Torres and Estupinian. They had Chukwueze, they had Danny Parejo, Etienne Capoue, whose quotes before the game were fantastic. When you are in Anfield, you are in hell. You are in hell for 90 minutes, he says. It certainly turned out that way for poor Etienne on the night. Coquelin, again, will be familiar to people from the English League, as will Lo Celso. And Danjuma was back in for them up top. So talk to me a little bit about that lineup and what they have to go to off the bench. People will be familiar with Paco Alcacer, Iborra as well, did a stint in England. Trigueros came on as the Dia. They have Pedraza, who came on. Serge Aurier, people will know that kid as well. And like I said, Moreno. What have they there that they can change, and hopefully for them to bring in that might make the difference in terms of going at us in that second leg?
Well, the obvious answer is Gerard Moreno to come in up front. Whether or not he's going to be fit remains anybody's guess at this point. He has a muscle injury, so we'll have to wait and see. I was surprised to have to say that Chukwueze was the one who started. I actually, for Emery, that was probably the most attack-minded thing he did all night, was start him. Myself and Carl both thought he'd start Lo Celso a bit higher forward and start another midfielder, because he's played the four central midfielders. Bringing Moreno in will help. Jeremy Pino, if he's fit, he could help as well next time he wasn't on the bench tonight. Look, you look at that team, there's not a whole lot they can do to really improve it. I'm feeling a little bit slanderous at the minute, so just bear with me. Geronimo Rulli, Man City reject. Juan Foyth, Tottenham reject. Raul Albiol, old man. Pau Torres, future Premier League flop. Estupinan, Watford reject. Lo Celso, Spurs reject. Capoue, Spurs reject. Parejo, QPR reject. Coquelin, Arsenal reject. Groneveld failed in the Premier League, only good enough for the Championship. And then Samuel Chukwueze, who I do like. That's basically who they played tonight. Now, you mentioned Rulli, and he's such a weird keeper. He really is. Every single thing he does, it's like he does it because he's aware that there's cameras on him. Like, there was even balls that he came out and punched tonight. And you're like, okay, fair enough. Coming to punch that is fine. But it's the way he does it as well. Like, the way he makes everything look far more difficult than it actually needs to be. There was one cross came right to left, and rather than come out and sort of actually punch it, he sort of went at it like he was Superman or something and sort of floated towards it and got a really weak fist to it. And you're like, is it just so you'll have your picture in the paper? I slander him more, but I just think the fact that he's called Geronimo is outstanding. On the bench, I should mention Vicente Iborra, who's a Leicester reject, Serge Aurier, a Tottenham reject, and of course, Albi Moreno, the greatest player in the history of Liverpool Football Club, is currently out injured, so that's a blow for them. But yeah, I mean, look, they're a group of lads that are cast-offs and lads that didn't quite work elsewhere, and they're good upper mid-table players who aren't quite good enough to play for that elite group, but are a bit too good to, for Premier League terms, they'd be a little bit too good for Palace and Southampton and that kind of clubs, but they're not good enough for your Liverpools, your Chelseas, your Uniteds when they're good, your Cities, your Arsenals and your Spurs. They're sort of West Ham level players. That's what they are. Leicester level players, although Leicester have good players. But they're that type of group. They're older, they're more experienced, they've been around, they've taken their knocks, they've got all the scars to prove it. And then a couple of younger, more talented players that came through their academy, like Torres, like Chukwueze, who they'll be hoping to sell for big profit and then reinvest in the team. they are what they are. They're admirable. I really admire them as a club. I think what they do and what they stand for is really impressive. I think their fans are absolutely outstanding, and they seem to have a great time in the city and at the game tonight. I think they bring a lot of colour to the game, and they sing non-stop. Like, they sing non-stop. They've been on a European adventure since August of 2020 that hasn't ended for them. They went all the way through the Europa League, all the way through this Champions League. Their fans are having the time of their lives. And that's part of what this is about. Football needs to be one of two things, Trev. You either need to be winning or you need to be having fun. Yeah. Last year they won. This year they're having fun. We're doing both. That's what it's about. That's why I've been saying all week, I don't know what it would be like to be an Everton fan, because they don't win anything and they haven't been fun in 30 years. So what's the point of Everton? Villareal is a club I can get on board with.
The point of Everton is they're fun for us, Dave. So that's
basically it.
It does. It's it does justifies their existence. We should start getting into the details of the match, because I have taken us on a wandering fact. But before we do, can we just take a second to acknowledge the wonder that is referee Simon Marciniak, who is, I don't know if you've ever been to a country dwelling in Ireland, or if you've ever visited your great auntie basically it has to be a country house, because there's nothing like this left in the city. And there might be a little strange building at the back, and you'll be told that back in the olden days, that's where they used to go to do their various ablutions, number ones and twos, etc. And that's commonly known as a brick shithouse. Simon Marciniak. First half there starts with a gorgeous long ball by Thiago, not the last one he'll do on 3 minutes. It's a tough enough ask for Mo to control, and he doesn't manage it. 7 minutes in, Robbo corner falls to Sadio via an Ibu Kanate challenge. His touch is a bit heavy. That leads to another corner. From that, Mo flicks a header over, but it's an impossible angle, and he returns the favour later on, giving Sadio a cross. It's a little bit behind him. Danjuma was offside. They play away, of course, because they're playing to the whistle. Simon doesn't blow it because his linesman doesn't put his hand up. VVD clears the ball, and he's not happy at all. Virgil's disgust was fantastic. 11 minutes in, Sadio couldn't angle a header on target. It's that one I was just talking about. It's a decent cut in and cross by Mo Salah. We do cut them wide open, but it's just whatever. The ball is just a bit too firm and a little bit too far behind him. Sadio's run was perfect. It's a beautiful bit of incisive football by the two lads. I love the way they're linking up again, I have to say. It's fantastic to watch. 13 minutes in, Diaz cut in, had a shot, but it was at the keeper. 14, we broke. Robbo drove one towards Sadio, led to a corner. Robbo, again, another outstanding performance for him. He's quietly getting back to the very best that he's ever been on a regular basis. 16 minutes in, Lo Celso puts a ball into Danjuma, but Virgil clears it. At that point, Fletch was chatting about the small area that Villareal is, and how it's like Morecambe and how can they get to a semi-final. He's not really understanding economies there. Fair play to him. On 21 minutes, there's another outrageous ball by Thiago, this time to Henderson. Henderson's volleyed cross hits the post and goes out. And then another dangerous cross by Trent after a decent Diaz ball into him. That leads to another corner. And it's just sort of never ending. And I'm going to pause it here at this point, about halfway through the first half with you, Dave, because that corner ended with Coquelin on the ground having a bit of a cry. The ref calling a free kick for nothing. And then later on, we see Sadio had his hands near somebody's face again. He needs to really watch that. And then on in the same minute, there's another fantastic 1-2 with Mo and Sadio Mane, ending with a first-time curled effort over the top by Mo. We are sharp as bejesus in many ways, Dave. There's great movement from Diaz, great movement from Sadio, great movement from Mo. We've got players on either flank who can link in with them. And the dominance is total. I like what you said earlier on, that the tie could have been actually dead at this point in the first half, just based on those few incidents that I was discussing there.
Yeah, I think so. I think it really could. I think we had the openings. I think the Sadio one from the knockdown by Ibu, I think if that's 5-10 minutes later in the game, I think his touch is instant and he puts it away. You know, like you said, there was some really nice link-up play. I saw people at half-time say they thought Sadio was playing poorly. And I thought I must have watched a different game, because I thought everything good that we had largely came with Sadio involved in one way or another. Yeah. I thought him and Mo seemed very much on the same wavelength. Diaz just adds a completely different dimension. Like, we were a great team in 18, 19, 19, 20, and we've added Thiago, who's our best midfielder, and Luis Diaz, who just gives us this new level of expansion, this new ability to stretch the field. It reminds me a little bit of when we used to play Man City, and they used to terrify the life out of me when they had De Bruyne, Fernandinho and Silva in midfield, David Silva, and then Sterling, Aguero and Sané up front, and they flex their 4-3-3 into a 4-4-2, and Sané would go really wide as a left winger and just become this outlet for them, who'd get a fullback alone on an island and just torture them. And Diaz does that for us. Like, he's nearly impossible to stop 1v1. He's got this great speed it up, slow it down sort of game. He's got great natural speed in a straight line. He can jink and go either way. He's obviously much better on his right foot, but he can stand up across with his left foot. And he just gives us this new dimension and this freshness and this hunger as well. Because remember, our lads have won a lot. Our lads have won the Premier League. They've won the Champions League. Even Thiago's coming in. He's got bucket loads of league titles. He's got 2 Champions League winners' medals. Diaz doesn't have that. Diaz doesn't have the big medals. You know, he's been in Portugal, with respect, it's not one of the elite level leagues. And he's been in Colombia, and again, with respect, it's not one of the elite level leagues. So he's coming in to a dressing room of world-class players who've all got their medals, and he's looking around thinking, this is what I want. So every time he goes out there, he is giving absolutely everything to make sure that when Klopp is picking his team, he's in the team. I think we see why today. We saw it against Everton. He came on and changed the game, just brought us a new level of dynamism and a new burst. I thought the same thing tonight. Every time he got the ball, you could almost sense Anfield begin to rise to their feet, because we're expecting him to make something happen. And it just gives us this really exciting thing. And when you've got that and him doing his thing and being able to link in with Mo and Sadio, like, he seems to have a wavelength with them as well, which is really rare to have it this quick. So you get those 3 buzzing around, and the pace, not just of their feet, but of their minds, plus the genius of Thiago, how intelligent Fab is, Trent is hyper-intelligent, Virgil's hyper-intelligent, that type of thing. And I didn't even mention the fact that we added Kanate to that as well, because he was monstrous tonight. Never let them get out. And Harry nailed it earlier on. It is like putting the frog in the water and slowly turning the water up. We just pushed them back and pushed them back and pushed them back. And all of a sudden, we're playing the game within 35 yards of their goal. And they don't realize we've done it. Whereas a couple of years ago, we were boil the water, throw the frog in. We'd try and hit teams hell for leather. And every so often, we get caught going the other way. Now, they couldn't get out against us. I saw this team carve Bayern Munich apart a couple of times on the counter, because Bayern were just trying to go hell for leather and push them back. Whereas we took, it's a little bit Moyes-esque, and I do wonder if it's something Klopp has borrowed from managers like, not necessarily Moyes, but managers like Moyes, who take that gentle press from the back option, where they don't necessarily press in one bunch. They move things up the field slowly and they relieve pressure on themselves. But Klopp has flipped it, and rather than relieving pressure on yourself, he's actually putting more pressure on the opposition. We're stepping forward, knocking it about. We step forward again. We knock it about. We step forward again. And all of a sudden, Ibu and Virgil aren't on the edge of the halfway, the semicircle in our half. They're on the edge of the semicircle in their half, and everybody else is in front of that. And they just couldn't get out. We were all over them in complete control. And it did just seem like a matter of time. At this point that you've stopped that, it seemed like a matter of time before we scored.
Yeah, and it was anytime there was even marginal danger where there was a little bit of a 1v1, our two centre halves had that pace to just and strength and presence to just ease past and ease in and put a foot in, and it was great to watch. Harry, there's something that strikes me there. As I was talking to Dave, I meant to mention it to him, but I might as well start this with you. We're going through the various ridiculous upsides of this team that we have, and we're familiar with with seeing the crossfield balls from Trent to Robbo. We saw some of them again tonight, and it's such a feature of our game again that we take for granted, and we shouldn't, because it's absolutely outstanding. And the lads were doing it for fun tonight in this game. And I know we used to have this with Sadio. I know when Sadio used to play in the left, we used to have this with Bobby through the middle. I know we did. But it seems to have ramped up a notch, because now we have it on the double all the time. How many times do you see balls from Diaz going all the way across to Mo, or vice versa? And like I say, I know that Sadio Mane was well capable of doing that when he was in that side too. But like I say, now that you've got the dynamism of Sadio and strength of him through the middle as well, plus Diaz doing what Diaz does, which is almost never ever lose the ball and keep possession and keep it recycle and do dangerous things and incisive things. We have this sort of cross-field movement, Harry, that, especially when a team is set up like they are tonight to really try to frustrate you. They can set up all they like, but when you've got that kind of rapid, and I mean rapid cross-field movement from these wonderful players who can execute passes, and we haven't even mentioned Thiago putting a ball in a sixpence. It's such a string to the bow for this Liverpool team, isn't it? It really does add an extra level when it comes to penetration and getting through in these frustrating matches.
Yeah, no, I think Dave was spot on in terms of we've seen the evolution of these sides, right? Liverpool, in terms of how we used to approach games like this, and we used to be chaos agents and really just try and rile things up for 20-minute patches, 30-minute patches, and then try and win a game in those periods, because we weren't necessarily the best at controlling the game on the ball, and yeah, we could keep teams penned in with our pressing, but perhaps it would fade after a bit. Maybe the pressing wasn't as intelligent as it is now, as organised as it is now. But yeah, I was using a phrase I think it was about 60, 70 minutes into the game at this stage actually, but sort of Fab and Thiago had sort of whipped out the heavy blanket, because there's just complete suffocation of anything. Like you just couldn't get out at all. As Dave pointed out, of course they're missing Moreno, and he does add a real sort of extra factor to how they can play. But this team did carve Bayern open on numerous occasions, and there was just no chance of that. And even those front three that you mentioned there, the rotation and movement, the fluidity around them, Sadio and this new sort of lease of life as a centre forward, it's just beautiful to see. And I completely agree with what you were saying earlier on, Trev. Around it's great to see this sort of renewed connection between Mo and Mane, just because of the positions that Mane is now finding himself in, more and more, that Mo's looking up and seeing that Sadio is the one who's right there making those late runs for him to be found. So it's a nightmare for opponents to deal with. But then also you've got to factor in that we saw, I think, on a couple of occasions tonight, and we've seen plenty of games as well. Diaz, you like him because he's a retention monster, but on the few occasions when he did lose it, he was chasing right back to support the fullback, win the ball back immediately. There's that tenacity in it, and he's new. He's got lots to prove. He's that new kid in class trying to sort of make his name. He's not one of those trophies like Dave was saying, but you see the same from Mane, who's won everything. You see the same from Mo, who's won everything as well. So I just think that beyond how technically good this side is, how intelligent they are, I really do think there's look, we set serious standards at this club, and if you lose the ball, you're winning it back. If you see someone who needs your help, you wander over there, you sprint over there to support them. We are not letting these guys get out, and even if we're not sort of finding through balls here, there, and everywhere, and really, really cutting them open, the pressure was going to tell. So yeah, I was really proud with sort of how we were approaching the game, because in the past we've seen games like this really, really unsettle us.
Something strikes me as I'm listening to you there. I can only assume that it's Luis Diaz who is behind Gary Neville's, I think, benign racial profiling of Liverpool as street fighters lately. I think it's the Luis Diaz effect, because when he said it, I was thinking that's frankly outrageous. And what are you shit talking about? I think there's a little bit of the South American lad scrapping away. I think.
And you think he's trying to sort of reduce the sort of the greatness of the side by just saying we're plucky?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. No doubt about it. That's absolutely it. Like that, poor old Gary's clutching the straws at this stage. You and I, let's look at the last part of this half, because the next incident of note was Coquelin taking out Trent in a central area. Trent was shaping to shoot. Coquelin cleaned him out of it, and there was a free kick. Torres blocks it with his head, and he had a little lie down for himself afterwards, and it was clearly time wasting, because it's that one where like he's having a look to see where the ball goes, so he's fine, but then he decides I might take a lie down here. On the half-hour mark, Diaz did cut in and shoot. It was a great hit, real powerful. Loved the angle of the shot, was great. A really kind of low rising shot. It was parried by the keeper, because of course it was. About a minute later, Virgil picks up a yellow card for body checking Chukwueze. 32 minutes in, Diaz slides a ball into Sadio. His half volley is just wide, deflected for a corner. From that, Diaz plays into Mo, and Mo's volley is blocked this time. Another corner. 34 minutes now we're at this stage. There's a Robbo ball into Trent. Here, one of those things I was just talking about. And Trent's volleyed cross is met by Mo. Now you're looking at goal of the decade if this goes in, but it hits Mo's right shin rather than him making any definitive contact with it, and it goes over the top. One of those things that we've been seeing in the lean spell that Mo was having, to be honest. It was a beautiful move, like the Robbo ball to Trent's cross, the execution of it, and if only Mo could have finished it, I swear to God you're looking at goal of the century. And then at 41 minutes, Thiago hits it seemed like the intersection, but I think it's just the very top of the bar on the left hand side. It's an outrageous dig from him, a little bit of space opens up. He's fully 30 yards, and it's a gorgeous dig, but not to be. Now, in that, if there's anything you want to focus on in particular, if you want to just reflect on the first half in general, Harry, before I move on to the start of the second with Dave.
No, not much. It was just keeping those standards up, keeping the intensity up, being patient. But I thought the tempo of our passing was pretty good throughout. We never really let it drop off too much. Sort of when Villareal did defend well, which they did for plenty of occasions, we sort of kept our calm, recycled possession, get back to Thiago. He'd quickly, his ability to do sort of body feints all over the place sort of opens up different angles for us. So, yeah, we were just sort of, if it was a boxing match, we were sort of just very casually just bringing up the points, Trev, on the scorecard. Just jab in here, there, and everywhere, softening them up for what I was hoping was going to be a really aggressive sort of 10, 15 minutes after half time. So yeah, I think it proved to be that way.
It did. If that was the plan, then absolutely mission accomplished, Dave, because the second half starts with, on 46 minutes, poor old Torres after his little lie down earlier on. Nearly ended up heading past his own keeper. A really dangerous whipped in ball by Mo Salah from the right hand side. And Torres is lucky to get away with his intervention. Stupinian takes out Mo on 47. He picks up a yellow for his troubles. That leads to a free on the right hand side. And Fabinho ends up with the ball in the net on 49 minutes. But I think Virgil was offside in the build up and he had contributed a header on to Fab. It would have been gorgeous, and it wasn't to be. But Harry's right, you know, the steam is starting to build. It really is. 52 minutes, there's a lovely little move that ends with Trent playing a ball in and Diaz looking to flick on a header but not quite making it with his head, hitting it with his shoulder, and as a result there's only whatever pace is on the cross, he can't add to it, and it just doesn't, it goes straight at the keeper. But again, we're looking more penetrative, and a minute later Henderson has put us ahead. Now, someone's put into the chats there, Dave, before we talk about the goal, just for a little bit of context, because it is important that, you know, I've already said, you know, an awful lot of people would have liked to have seen Keita starting in this game, and it started a wee debate there in the chat, and you can imagine it's the usual debate that people are having, because you know, they can see the relative merits of both. But the LFC stats, that's interesting, you know, 87% pass completion, 68 touches, 4 tackles, which is an important stat, I think, an interception in there, and that contribution to the goal, I find it hard to take the goal off him, I'll be honest. I know it's a big deflection.
There's no way to even give him the goal, Trev. It's a cross that's not going anywhere near the goal. It's going towards the penalty spot. There's not a review in the world in which he could claim that he meant it.
No, 100%. To be fair, I don't think the fella would. But in fairness, if I'm the one whose foot that's left, I'm claiming it. I'm just telling you that. It's an attempted cross. It's at the end of a great move, which was started by some brilliance by Thiago. Like, just great foot, just presence, calmness, moving the ball, keeping the move going. The move ends up with Henderson on the right hand side. His cross to, I think there's 2, maybe 3 people inside him. Fletcher was trying to say it was a tap in for people, but there were also defenders there. That's not true, and it's hard to read where the cross was going. It was most of our crosses were cleared, but thankfully, there's a little intervention, and it ends up going off Stupinian and looping over the keeper, who also gets a bit of a paw on it as he palms it into over his head and into the net. And honestly, man, the relief of that was huge, wasn't it?
Massive, absolutely massive. And like I said earlier, it was getting to the point where we were going to need something bouncing off someone's knee or them making a mistake. It was going to take something out of the ordinary for us to get ahead, because you could sense a little bit of frustration starting to build among the fans, and the atmosphere had dampened down a bit, and people were getting a little bit more nervy, and there was no real impact on the players. The players continued to play their football. Obviously, everything's going through Thiago, so I mean, he could be at home playing with his mates or out in a pitch in front of 60,000. It doesn't affect him. He's just completely locked in and focused on the task at hand. So as he's dictating things and we're working the ball around, I think the fans are starting to get antsy, but I think the players were fine. I do. But I do think Villareal were growing in confidence, and maybe that's what it just needed. It needed something out of the ordinary, something flukish or something world class. We got the flukish deflection. I don't know what Rulli is doing. I've watched that goal now 6 or 7 times. I have no idea what he's doing in that position. Like, he should be 2 or 3 feet further back, not letting that ball loop over his head the way he does. It's really poor goalkeeping. It's unfortunate for Estupiñán, because he gets out to Henderson, he gets his foot up to block the cross, and it's one of those freak things. Like, the cross for Henderson to play was probably a lower cross, which Estupiñán doesn't get a foot on, but we probably get a tap in from. But he plays the cross, it hits his foot, and it goes. It's what we needed. We'll take it all day long. And look, it doesn't hide the fact that he didn't play well again tonight, but he contributed, and that's all you can really ask from him. Just contribute and don't be a negative impact. The biggest problem with him this season has been Henderson has been a negative impact on a lot of games. Tonight he wasn't. He wasn't impactful going forward until that moment, but he didn't have a negative impact defensively, and that's all I ask from him. So it wasn't the midfield I'd have picked, but it worked. So who cares?
Yeah, and I think that's something that people are going to have to get their head around, because I saw in the Discord chat earlier on in the Raw one, we go now Saturday, Tuesday, Sunday, and then if we're lucky enough, we'll be in a final in the Champions League as well. That depends on the second leg. It's relentless, and because it's relentless, there will be lineups that people will query and will be nervous about, but this is how it's got to be, because
Look, in our squad, there's one player who shouldn't start under any circumstance. No, I tell a lie. There are two. One of them is Adrian, but he's never going to start unless there's like an outbreak of diarrhea among the goalkeepers.
You're going to say Jimbo, aren't you?
And the other one's Milner. He just can't play anymore, Trev. And you can want to build your statues all you want. The guy can't play anymore. His closest points this season.
I was the first to say it, brother. I was the first to say it. He can't start anymore. He just can't.
You can bring him on with 5 or 10 to go when you're 2 or 3-0 up to see out a game, or just to do a Jimmy Milner thing and just ramp through somebody and absolutely tarmac them to the ground. And if you want to do that, that's fine. But he can't start again. It's unfortunate. He can get his 5 minutes at the end of the Champions League final when we're 4-0 up, but that's it from Milner. But other than that, we're going to be fine. Like if we go to Newcastle at the weekend and it's Thiago and Jones as the 8th with Henderson as the 6th, that's fine. Like that's fine. If it's Jota and Mane and Diaz up front, again, that's grand. If Harvey Elliott starts, it's fine. If Gomez starts or whoever Costa start, that's all. These are all good players, so we're fine as long as Milner doesn't start another game. We have no reason to worry about the team selection in the big games, in the important games. Then that's where Klopp will have to earn his corner, and he's going to have to make big decisions, because whatever about the Champions League semi-final with a 2-0 lead going over there, we have a cushion, but there's going to be an FA Cup final. There's going to be a game against Spurs. There's going to be a Champions League final potentially. And he has a big decision to make. And the correct decision is to leave his captain sitting on the bench. He's done it for a derby. He's done it for an FA Cup semi-final. He's done it in multiple big European games this season. I don't think he'll be afraid to make it. I think we've seen more and more that Jordan Henderson's days as a starter for Liverpool are over. He's now a rotation player, in rotation with Naby, and I think that's what he has to accept. And next season it'll be even more so, because there'll be somebody who'll come in the summer and he's just not going to be a first choice player anymore, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to watch how that develops over the remainder of the season. And Harry, the great news is that having gotten one up through Henderson's cross, which took that deflection and went in, and very happy we were all about it. I think it was just short of 2.5 minutes, or just north of 2 minutes before we are 2-0 up. Very little to query or quibble about this one. It is Sadio Mane who has been doing the frickin' business for us as a centre forward. Trent basically plays the ball through to Mo. He lets it on to Sadio, who sweeps it home. There was a lot of fear in me because I was up. I celebrated all the goals, including all the ones that were disallowed, because I was just in sort of naive form this evening, Harry. But if that had been disallowed, I think I probably have been on a plane to Poland to have a little word with Shimon, brick shithouse and all as he is. He's not going to see me coming, I'll tell you, if that gets disallowed. It was a beautiful move, and what I loved about it was it was a kind of a fuck you in terms of, right, we've gotten our noses ahead and we didn't sit back. We didn't take the temperature of the match. We went for the throat again. And here's the best news about it. When that stop, when that goal goes in and it's finally allowed and VAR is checked, we go again, Harry. And I love that about this team.
Yeah, no, it's sort of classic Liverpool in terms of sort of what we were talking about at the start, that we used to have these periods where we'd cause chaos and we try and hit opponents during those periods where everything's spinning. And they've we've heard numerous managers talk about it. We've had our friend over in Manchester talk about it in terms of sort of how you feel like you'll concede 4 in those patches where we go a goal ahead and then the intensity still is ramped up. Yeah, it was a pretty simple goal in its sense, in terms of sort of Mo sort of just sliding it through to Sadio and him stabbing it home as well. Miles onside as well. I'm not sure why you were holding back with the celebration, Trev. Clearly onside. Obviously, Raul Albiol's, he's a wonderful defender, but the old man was. I think he was the one who was responsible for playing Sadio on there. But I just seen as well. I mean, you sometimes forget sort of the individual records of some of these players, because Mo shines so brightly most of the time as well. But apparently that's Sadio's 14th goal in the Champions League, which basically equals Drogba's record. So he's the joint top African goal scorer in the entire competition's history. And you can well imagine him taking the record for being the top goal scorer by the end of the competition if he keeps up this form. I was just stunned that Salah's not scored as many goals apparently as Sadio in the Champions League anyway for Liverpool. But it's you often forget sort of what a player he's been for us over the years, and multiple types of finishes in different situations. But he's always been there. So it's great to see the sort of new lease of life that he's had in that new position. And just striking Villareal, who were incredibly well organised, incredibly hard, sort of drilled into sort of being disciplined in these moments. But even they, could be unsettled, could be shaken in periods like that. So I was just glad that we took full advantage.
That we did. And I meant to mention in the first half, or towards the end of the first half, I was speaking to Carl on WhatsApp at one point, who asked me to pay particular attention to the fact that whatever commentary stream Carl was listening to said that Liverpool probably pressed too much in the first half, which is a really hot take, I think you'll agree, from whoever was being paid actual money, to come up with that opinion. We, after going ahead, Harry, I'll stick with you for a little while on this, because there's quite a lot to talk about in the remaining, in terms of incidents. After a minute after we go 2-0 up, they bring on Pedraza for Coquelin. And before you know it, Harry, we'll pause here for a minute. There's an incident where Mo is charging into the box, and there's a forearm that goes across his chest and up into his throat area, and both of the lads, Owen Hargreaves and whoever the other fellow was, it was McManaman, wasn't it? Yeah, it was McManaman. They were falling over themselves to say, "Oh, basically not for me, Clive." The usual.
It was a bit soft.
It's a bit soft. We've seen him given, but I'd be a blah 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 blah. Now, there was a lot of bullshit being talked about penalties and the awarding of and free kicks and the awarding thereof, and yellow cards and the awarding thereof in the wake of the Everton game. But I mean, if Martin Tyler can say of the apparent Anthony Gordon incident we've seen them given, then I can say with absolute conviction that I've seen those given as well, because it's a little bit of a rugby handoff. I mean, look, yeah, okay, it's possibly you'd be a bit disgusted if you're a Villareal person and they give it, but the way they were so quick to brush off when Sadio Mane gently putting his hand to someone's face was like, oh, he's lucky to stay in the field. Do you see where I'm going with this, Harry?
Yeah, it's just the Mo Salah. It's the Mo Salah rules, isn't it? But
it is.
We've seen it for a while. That's why it was so hilarious that Mr. Lampard made a comment that if that salary wins that penalty, because he's clearly not been watching Salah play for Liverpool over the past few years. I actually enjoyed. I forget who it was who was doing the commentary with Steve McManaman on the stream. I was on the sort of channel I was watching, but I did enjoy.
It was Hargreaves, Owen Hargreaves.
It was Hargreaves, but there was a third commentator as well who was there because Hargreaves was just jumping in every now and then with a little bit of insight, and that I did enjoy that both Hargreaves and McManaman were quick to underplay it, like you said, just to play it down, and then that third guy, whoever he was like, "Oh yeah, well the hand's not firmly gripped around the throat enough for you."
Actually, it was
immediately said it.
It was one of Fletch's highlights of his commentating career. God bless him. He was on the ball. Let's move a little bit further on in this little period of the game as well. Lo Celso picks up a yellow in 61 minutes for taking Robbo out. To be fair, Robbo had stolen in after a really bad Jordan Henderson crossfield ball and one possession. And like I say, he was playing like a demon, like he did in the derby. It's great to see him doing that. And before you know it, he is the ball in the net himself. It's a Trent ball into him, because of course it is. It's a great headed finish by him. 63 minutes, but sadly he's offside. So we just have to, let it go. But this is what I meant by we didn't take our foot off their neck. 67 minutes, Virgil has a dig from distance. It's a good hit, and it's parried away by this strangest of goalkeepers. 67 minutes again, Diaz has a shot deflected corner. From that corner, nothing arrives. And on 70 minutes, Diaz is in again after a great ball by Trent. 71 minutes, they decide they're going to change it up, and at this point you can hear we don't let off. We don't let off any of the pressure. We keep the pressure on them. So on the sideline, the manager of Villareal decides it might be time for me to change it. I'm going to sweep back my Dracula hair and go for it with Trigueros and Aurier and Dia all came on. We bring on Naby and Jota for Hendo and Sadio. And on 78 minutes, Diaz cuts in and takes a shot across the face of goal. It's not a bad opportunity, and he could probably have done better with the shot if we're being perfectly honest. At one point then, soon after that, we bring on again two more subs. This time it's Joe Gomez and Divock for Trent and the aforementioned Diaz. Soon after that, Pedraza tries to have Fabinho with a sliding tackle. Not even a foul given, whereas everything Fab did was being looked at very funny by Simon over the course of the night. A fantastic 1-2 with Jota and Divock, but Jota gets kind of closed out. That's about 83, 84 minutes. They bring on Alcacer for Danjuma on 85. 2 minutes get added. It's a fantastic tackle by Fabinho. But of course, our Polish pal gives a free kick. Weird decisions by the end of it. And I've got a couple of things that I just want to mention with you, Harry, just to see this game out here. Mm-hmm. At the end, coming off the bench, as everybody's doing the hugs and acknowledging the fans and all the rest of it, the camera was lingering on Sadio, who appeared to be limping. Now, I don't know if you picked up on that, but that was a worry. Then obviously there was the fight thing with Trent and Kloppo laughing at him, which was funny as well. So in the last part of the game, and if there was anything that I left out, feel free to lead into it. If there's anything you want to mention in particular that deserves more focus, please do say that. And did you see what I saw with Sadio there? Because he definitely wasn't moving freely as he was going towards the tunnel.
No, I didn't see it with Sadio. No, I've not heard anything that suggests he's got a knock or anything like that. But yeah, hopefully he's okay, because he's obviously been in such sort of wonderful form for us. Perhaps it is sort of a game that you can look at the Newcastle game and think, well, if he does need a bit of a rest, that is one where we can mix things up a little bit in terms of the front line. But no, in terms of sort of this patch of the game, it was just a similar pattern, Trev, in terms of sort of us keeping the intensity high. I was pleased to see that we were taking more pot shots from distance because, as you mentioned, very unorthodox sort of technique from Rulli. I think there were a few moments there for Adrian on the bench that he must have sort of recognised in a way, even though he did have some heroic moments for us early on. There were some sort of very familiar moments there as well. Diaz, you can just see that final element of his game is going to be adding some of the goals that he was getting for Porto, for Liverpool as well. You can see that's probably going to be the aspect that starts to come next season. You'd imagine where he gets even more confident in those positions. Some of the shots are great, but you can imagine you want to see them with more power, more precision. And yeah, that will come in time as well. But he's just echo what you said. He's just so lively, so unpredictable. When you've got a guy who will just for the sake of it control a ball like he did against Everton, just to sort of let the fans know that you never know what you can expect from him. Yeah, he's a very exciting figure to watch. And yeah, I was personally thrilled to see Sadio that pissed coming off the pitch because clearly wanted to stay on, wanted to be involved, and you could see that from a couple of the players who came off. I thought that they were sort of reluctant to be withdrawn, but again, sort of a luxury to bring on those players, to bring on Naby, the likes of Jota, keep up that pressure, keep up that intensity. Divock came on again and was pretty neat and tidy, I thought, in terms of sort of his involvement, which was really positive to see again. So yeah, even late on when that sort of non-free kick was conceded on Aurier as well, you're thinking about Liverpool sides in the past and dodgy free kicks given away on 88 minutes, 89 minutes. Are we going to sort of pay the price? But yeah, there wasn't even sort of a slight worry of it, to be honest. It was so controlled, and at that stage you were just beginning to think about the weekend, beginning to think about how we're going to approach the next leg as well. So it's really a luxurious position to be in. And yeah, I think I saw one thing at the end of the game, Trev, that there's so many records that we see broken each and every week and things like that. But I think it's the last 3 games in Anfield since the start of the last week, we've won with an aggregate score of 8-0. We've made 1,622 more passes than our opponents, and we've had 93 more touches in their boxes. So pretty much, we are camped in your yard, and it's our yard, and you're not getting out. It's just a wonderful period for us to sort of enjoy this team because they really are imperious at the moment.
That's some very rewarding Matchet-esque stats at the end there. We will finish with myself and yourself having a chat in a second, get your wrap-ups. And Dave, you and I will do exactly that now, my friend. What is left on the table that you want to talk about from the match itself, or any overall sort of sum-up thoughts in general?
I think the referee had a bit of a nightmare. All told, like there was moments where you saw him do things and you thought, you know what, he could be a really good referee because he does seem to be explaining his decisions to players as and when he makes them. Like when Lo Celso went down holding his head, I think it was Thiago was like gesturing at him like, what's the foul for? And he was saying, no, it's not a foul, it's a head injury. He went to Salah after Salah had been fucking jabbed in the throat and said to him, seemed to be explaining the decision to him. And that's fine, but you got the decision wrong. I mean, he's put his hand in Salah's throat to hold him back. Now, I was fortunate enough to have the punditry wizardry co-commentary wizardry, I should say, of Rob Green on the CBS coverage. Wow. Rob Green, whose brain cells appear to be leaving his head at a staggering rate as the game goes on, said, but if you stop it there, look how far away the ball is from Salah, without realising that the reason the ball was that far away from Salah was because there was a hand in his throat stopping him from running. And throughout the game, he just came out with complete and utter nonsense. But yeah, it was just a lot of not big moments, just a lot of small moments and that penalty where I just thought, how are you getting this so wrong? Like, he booked Virgil, and I don't have a problem with Virgil getting that yellow card. But about 5 minutes earlier, Coquelin had grabbed hold of Trent and basically given him a hug on the edge of their box that we won a free kick from, but he should have been booked for it. You mentioned the one where, who was it, Pedroza slid in on Fabinho?
Yeah, he nearly halves him.
And he nearly halves him, and yet they get a throw-in. And, like, Fab just looked completely baffled, but, like, anything Fabinho did, like the one late on where Fabinho clearly wins the ball, Aurier falls over because there is a bit of contact after he wins the ball, and that's a free kick.
And by the way, that's in a hugely dangerous position.
Yes, that could have been eye-altering.
That there, right there, if it wasn't for, like, okay, I go back a long way, we all know that, but I'm still traumatized by Lucas doing Lucas things in the Lucas zone.
Yes.
And that was an unwitting one of those, because Fab actually didn't do anything wrong, but the referee awards a free in a dangerous position. And I'm sorry, Dave, but if that's 2-1 going into the second leg, it's a hugely different thing, and it's our pal the ref who has totally fucked it.
It is, and then, like, even little things, like, this is going to sound like me being pedantic, but I am pedantic, so you'll have that. For every substitution made, there's meant to be 30 seconds added. Now, we made 5, but in 2 batches. No, we made 4, but in 2 batches, and they made 5, but in 3 batches. So that's 5 stoppages for substitutions. So that should be 2.5 minutes. For every goal, there's meant to be 30 seconds, so that should be 2 goals equals a minute. And then there was the couple of injuries where they had players down, feigning or not feigning. There was still a couple more minutes there. Realistically, there should have been 5, maybe even 6 minutes of added time, and he added on 2. Like, again, it's irrelevant, but just little things like that. Like, all we're asking for is consistency. And for you to actually follow the rules of the game, not make it up as you go along. Like, that's all we want as referees. The rules of the game make the game enjoyable. If the referees follow them, the game will be enjoyable. If they make it up as they go along, it does take away from the game. And I thought he took away from the game a little bit tonight. He was too noticeable. And it was the same thing. We had him earlier this year. Am I right in thinking he refereed the Milan game at home?
Yeah, I think so.
And he was really aggressive a couple of times with a couple of our players, including Fabinho, who tried to question him on a decision. And he got really aggressive with him and got right in Fab's face. And I said to you on Raw afterwards, he's really unprofessional in the way he goes about his business. And I thought today was the same thing. He's trying to make himself the centre of attention. Now, I have a couple of stats that I'd like to share with everybody. I've stolen these from people, so I will credit along the way. The first one is from the Tactical Times. Across the last 4 matches, Thiago has attempted 388 passes and completed 372 of them for a 96% passing accuracy, which is fairly impressive. Villareal had lost their 9 previous visits to England. Their last win on English soil, Everton in 2005, to dump the EV out in the qualifiers of the Champions League. So the EV will be furious at the sounds of that, and probably will be cancelling all of their BT subscriptions because Fletch,
they're booing as we speak. They're
mention it.
Boo!
Did you see the thing? Did anyone see? Did you see the thing? Well, please tell me you saw the thing with Domino's the other day.
Oh, it's fucking brilliant!
Oh, it's just glorious. There's a guy. I think his handle is @Pablo again. He did a video of the best replies to the tweet from all the Ev fans, tagging in Papa John's and Pizza Hut, saying that all Everton fans will now be boycotting. Domino's. You just have to love them. They live in a world where they're furious at everything, and they can't have any crack. And the last thing I'll say about the Ev before we focus back in on Villareal is Everton fans have spent the last, however long since Project Big Picture came out, they spent quite a bit of time referring to us and other fans as the Greedy Six. Yeah, the Greedy Six. Yeah. Liverpool, Chelsea, City, Arsenal, United and Spurs. The Greedy Six. I was reading yesterday about the formation of today. I think it was today about the formation of the Premier League and how there was a big five of clubs that drove the formation of the Premier League: Liverpool, Manchester United, Arsenal, Tottenham, and
Of
Everton.
course. Yeah.
Everton. So they were part of the big five who were behind the push for that Premier League. They have fallen so far. There's now a big six. They're not part of it. If there was a big seven, Newcastle are the obvious choice to come into it with all their money. A big eight would probably include Aston Villa or West Ham. A big nine would include the other. A big 10 would probably be Leicester City. They're no longer one of the 10 biggest clubs in England. I just thought I'd drop that there and leave you all to enjoy that little tidbit, and you can just chew on it over the night. And,
Fucking boo! Fucking boo!
Magnificent. They're home now. They don't know what they're booing at, but they've woken their wives up to tell them. They're talking about us again. They're obsessed with us. They're obsessed with us. They're red shite. They're obsessed with us. They're all in a conspiracy. They think there's a conspiracy against them as well, which is wonderful.
It's because we're all wearing Divock masks. That's what really freaks them out.
They think that. So there's been, I think it's been there's been 12 players booked in the Premier League for diving this season, and half of them have been Everton players, and they think that's proof that there's a conspiracy against them. It's actually just proof that they're just a bunch of diving bastards.
Did you see the JFK grassy knoll photographs of Stuart Atwell going over to examine the corner being taken from the correct place, and lads crying, "Who else? Who would do this? It's just a red shite." The rage was beautiful. So anyway, man. Let's start wrapping it up.
Them at the FA Cup next year. Won't play them in the league, obviously, but we might get them in the FA Cup. As for tonight, look, all we could ask for was a win. That's all that really matters at this stage. We take 2-0, absolutely. We take 2-0 against anybody. But against a team like that don't carry a massive goal-scoring threat, we will go to Spain very confident in 6 days' time. And they're going to have to open up a little bit, which is going to just leave them a little bit exposed to our ability to counter-attack, especially with the new addition of Diaz and Mane through the middle. It might even be a game for Jota to play through the middle, just for that extra bit of kind of directness in behind. But we have to be happy. But again, like I said earlier, they're just a really nice club that I really admire. They took 5,000 people to the game tonight. Their town only has 50,000. If Liverpool took 10% of the population of the city to an away game, it would fill most stadiums. Like, it would fill Goodison, it would fill Villa Park, it would almost fill the Etihad if Liverpool took 10%. So, like, that's the kind of scale we're talking about here. They brought 10% of their city to the game tonight. They had Anfield bouncing. Their crowd was great. Ours responded. There was no badness. There was no bitterness. There's no venom in the ground at all tonight, unlike what we saw at the weekend. There was flags in their end for the 97, which was a wonderful touch. Their fans really seemed to have enjoyed their day in the city centre. They seem to have brought a lot to the occasion. And that's all you're asking for when you get these type of games, is for the occasion. So we'll take the win and we'll move on. The Toon at the weekend is going to be a big test. They have the second most points in the Premier League since January 1st. So we can't overlook them. But at least we've given ourselves a bit of breathing room in the Champions League, unlike City, who have a nail-biter waiting for them next week. So, good times to be a Red. Two-footed pod every day, daily Red every day. There'll be a scouted for Newcastle. And that's about it from me. Oh, before I go, shout out to Harinder. Cardigan game, strong. There's a picture of Harinder at the game tonight. Cardigan game. And I'm not, you take my message. Cardigan game is strong, Harinder. Fair play. Not sure on tandem sunglasses now. I
did not have you down as a knitwear junkie, young Hendrick, I have to say. But
what do you mean young? What do you mean young? Young Hendrick died 2 weeks ago.
Bro, I'm trying
3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago.
I'm trying to distract from the fact that you're wearing a mustard cardi and some corduroys as we speak. But
Yes.
you know, the truth is out there. Harry, you're so many miles away as a far more dapper, younger, urbane gent than us owl pair. Let's finish with your youthful musings. By the way, at the weekend, just in case you're wondering, I'm not going to say a word after Harry. I'm just going to finish. It's myself, young Hendrick, and Jim Boardman back for Newcastle, and the same trio apparently will be in for Aston Villa whenever that happens. So just to let you know about that. Harry, final thoughts from yourself, my friend, about the overall match and any things that you think we left on the table or you want to mention, and do finish off as well by letting folks know what they can get their earbuds around for their Sethi delights during the week.
Yeah, I feel like with the sort of the intro there around my youthful musings, you basically want me to come out and say that game was lit or something.
Please do. Please start throwing some slang about. Yeah, that would be great.
I'll be Moreno slang, sort of like just flicking my wrist here and there. No, it was it was great. It's I think we started off the pod talking about sort of what it feels like at the moment to feel calm ahead of games like this. I felt calm throughout the match, towards the end of the match, even thinking about the next leg. I feel relatively calm about that as well, and that's not arrogance at all. I mean, I'd echo all of Dave's comments about Villareal and sort of the wonderful work they've done, that subsidising sort of fans' tickets to be able to make the trip and make it a real occasion. Thought they were a real credit to themselves and the side. Let's face it, for the side with the resources that they have, they're far from an embarrassing performance tonight. Especially given what we've seen at Anfield sometimes this season. So no, I thought it was a great game. Another sort of display of dominance from a number of the players in the team. Another outing for Thiago to sort of break the stats slightly below on the high 90s in terms of his pass completion tonight. But yeah, the guy's magical. There are a number of really, really strong performances as well. But just onwards to the weekend's game. It's, no games are less important at the moment, and as Dave mentioned, and as I sort of discovered today, actually from the rival recon that I recorded for the Newcastle game, they've been playing very well apparently, without me necessarily being fully aware of it. As the second most points in the league, aside from ourselves, I think since the turn of the year. So been very impressive, and that's going to be an interesting game as well, because usually Eddie Howe was that sort of reliable 6 points a season. So that's going to be an interesting one, and that should be out I'd say tomorrow. We spoke to Chris Waugh from the Athletic, who had a lot of insight into Newcastle and sort of the ways in which they managed to improve. So keep your ears peeled for that.
Very much looking forward to doing exactly that, my friend, because it's a topic that fascinates me. We have gone long, but if you can't go long, on a Champions League semi-final, did you hear that? Champions League semi-final, first leg, then when can you go long? We have had a good old chat here, myself and Dave and Harry. We'll be back with you, like I said, as a trio for a Raw quite soon. And every single match between now and the end of the year will be covered by this particular show in the way that we do. We thank you if you've been live with us on Discord. Really appreciate your input during the show. It makes a difference. We can get some feedback and have some reaction, and that's lovely. And if you're just listening to the podcast after the fact, we appreciate you equally. God bless you. Keep listening to us. Keep listening to the channel. Keep subscribing to the channel. And we'll talk to you all very, very soon.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.